Okay, thank you for joining me. Mick Rooney, investigative journalist, Radio Espial. We're just going to review the case of Nicola Bulley. This was quite a high profile case in the UK that began in January this year, 2023. Please, I'm not going through the whole case again. Either up here, cards, or in the description, you can go through the full timeline and analysis that I do. But as always, when there's a significant update or conclusion in the case, I'll go through it. But for people who may be going, I haven't heard of this case, or what's this about? Nicola Bulley, 45, mortgage advisor, was last seen on Friday morning. This is a morning in late January 2023 this year, around 9:20 a.m. while walking her dog alongside the River Wyre in St Michael's on Wyre, Lancashire. She had just dropped off her two daughters, aged 6 and 9, at the local school in the village. Miss Bulley's phone was found apparently still engaged on a work call on a park bench nearby, along with the harness and lead for her dog Willow, a spring spaniel. On February the 19th, 2023, Nicola Bulley's body was recovered from the River Wyre. What I'm about to go into is the inquest by the coroner into her death and what they found out, and I'll touch on some other aspects of the case. Okay? So let's do that. So the June inquest conclusion. Mother of two, Nicola Bulley, drowned after entering river water, and there is no evidence anyone else was involved in her death. An inquest has been told over the past 2 days. Two witnesses said they heard a scream coming from the area of the River Wyre in Lancashire, where a 45-year-old was last seen on the day she disappeared. This was I'm kind of doing my best for you to just focus on what maybe kind of new or we didn't know enough about at the time. So these two witnesses, the screams, and these will be people in close proximity to the park bench where Nicola Bulley was last believed to have been around the 9:20 a.m. Timeline that morning, and we hadn't heard really much about these two witnesses. Now, another witness, Mr. Fife, described how he passed Miss Bulley, who was on her phone, while on his dog walk between 9:10 and 9:20 a.m. on the morning of her disappearance. According to his statement, Mr. Fife saw a 6'1" man dressed all in black, possibly a beanie hat, again on his return, adding that he thought it was strange. Mr. Fife then got in his car and drove off. When he drove past the spot where the man in black had been standing, he said the figure had gone. Noting he knew her well enough in passing to say hello, eyewitness Mr. Fife explained he saw a man in black as he walked towards Miss Bulley and assumed he, the man, was waiting for a lift. Now, there's a problem here, I think, with this eyewitness statement. The clear timeline indicates Nicola was in the area of the upper field, making her way back towards the lower field, 9:10, 9:20 a.m. Their own water area, close to the upper field, would be the only place at that time the man in black could be. I mean, he's hardly standing in a field waiting for a lift from a car in the upper field. There's absolutely no evidence this man was ever in the upper field after 9:20 a.m. if he ever existed, and likely the reason why police discounted him. It should be noted that police never identified this man in black, and no other witnesses walking in the area at the time, the specific time, recalled seeing this man. Drowning experts told the inquest into her death at Preston Coroner's Court that entering cold water can cause a victim to gasp and inhale water and drown within seconds. Professor Michael Tipton, a world expert in drowning, said there would have been a fairly rapid incapacitation after Miss Bulley went into the river on the morning of 27th of January, which could have been as cold as 3 degrees Celsius. I've gone through the kind of transcript of the inquest. I believe the official record shows, kind of weather records, meteorological, that it's around 3.6 degrees, so just below 4 degrees, the water temperature. It may have been just seconds before she began to lose consciousness, the hearing was told. Professor Michael Tipton said he agreed with UK Home Office pathologist Alison Amor, who conducted a post-mortem examination and concluded Miss Bulley drowned. He said Miss Amor's findings of water in the stomach and lungs is consistent with a gasp response underwater, with liquid entering the body's organs. So, in essence, what's being said there is, and there was a lot of speculation, how deep was the water? Could she not have scrambled out if she accidentally fell in? The expert witnesses have now concluded, in their opinion, that one, and we're going to see a video coming up shortly, that a little distance off the embankment river where the bench was actually a lot deeper than was initially suspected. There were rocks there, easy to cause injury, and essentially there was a strong chance if somebody fell unexpectedly into the river at that point, there would be incapacitation, and the nature of the extremely cold water would act almost instantly on the body, causing this kind of behaviour, this gasping sense. Miss Bulley vanished after dropping off her daughters 6 and 9 at school and taking her usual dog walk along the river in St Michael's, Lancashire, on the 27th of January. Her mobile phone, still connected to a work Teams call, was found on a bench overlooking the water. Her body, as we've touched upon, was found in the river around 1.6 kilometres from the bench on the 19th of February. Professor Tipton goes on to say to the inquest, in my opinion, given the nature of the likely entry into the water, I would suspect Nikki had a gasp response under the water, initiating the drowning process. On the balance of probability, there was a fairly rapid incapacitation due to cold shock. It could have been an estimated 20 to 30 seconds before Miss Bulley lost consciousness, the inquest heard. 2 breaths of water would have been a lethal dose for someone of Miss Bulley's size, Professor Tipton said. Cold water expert Dr. Patrick Morgan said, on the occasion that the individual has taken that initial gasp on the surface of the water and then gone below, the duration will be 10 seconds that you could hold your breath, and very likely 1 or 2 seconds at best. PC Matthew Thackeray, a police underwater diver, said the area where Miss Bulley is believed to have gone into the water has a steep slope. And at this point, we're going to take that video insert. I found this video fascinating because this is essentially what they call an emulation, where a diver gets in the water after they believe what might have happened Nicola, and they essentially simulate it. You can do all the simulations and emulations with dummy you know, people in the water, floating, you know, object, but it's never the same. And these divers are trained to behave like they believe the person who enters the water may have behaved when they became incapacitated. So let's take a look at that video.
I'm PC3410 Thackeray, Lancashire Constabulary, currently on secondment with the North West Police Underwater Search and Marine Unit. I've been asked to record some of the features of the River Wyre near to Allotment Lane in relation to the Nicola Bulley inquest. Today is Tuesday the 4th of April 2023. The time by my watch is 11:07. Currently stood at the bench where we believe Nicola was last before she may have entered the water. As you can see, as you go down to the river, it is quite a steep slope. The river is probably down about half a metre from the day when we attended, when she went missing. As you can get to the bottom here, you can see there's quite a large step down into the water. Hopefully you can see on the screen there's a pile of rocks. Those rocks constitute a wall that goes pretty much vertically straight down in the water to around 4 meters of depth, and then as you go out across the river it slopes gently upwards with a sandy bottom towards the far bank. If I get into the water, it doesn't look like it's flowing very fast at all at the moment. On the day in question, you could see there was a steady flow downstream. At the moment we're above the weir, and the whole time we were here searching, the water was flowing downstream towards the weir. Again, all of this was searched on the night in question by officers wading in a line, and we could see the whole width of the river. As you get to the weir itself, hopefully you can see there's a lip, but there's a lot of water going over it. Even though the water is now down from where it was on the day, it comfortably pushed me over, float over the top and straight into the faster flowing water at the bottom. It's not powerful enough, there's not a big enough drop on the other side to stop you. Again, we did search the other side of that weir to make sure there was nothing trapped in it. As I stand up now, it's waist deep, flowing faster. The bottom is rocky, difficult to stand up on. It does shallow to here where I'm about knee deep. Now below the weir, this river is tidal, and so it can flow in both directions. Again, when we were here, it was all flowing downstream on the day, but I believe at the time she went missing it would have been low tide, so before we arrived there would have been a high tide that pushed things back up, and then it would have started ebbing away as we started diving. I believe the fire brigade were searching downstream, and they were here before we arrived. We arrived about 3 PM and started diving 4 PM. If you look to the left, you can see there's a sandy bank. Over to the right, you can see there are some trees where someone potentially could have been caught up. These weren't searched by us on the day, but I believe the fire brigade were in a boat and were searching in and around all of these snag hazards. Still currently waist deep, and there are some more trees on this right hand bank that potentially could have been a snag hazard. In the middle of the river here there is a shallow sandbank. There's a channel that runs to the right and to the left where it's deeper. I'm just coming onto the sandbank now. I'm coming up from waist deep to shin deep, but on either side slightly deeper. So here I'm waist deep. You can see again man-made rocks and a wall on the way down.
He went on to add that the river was 4 degrees Celsius. I think officially it's 3.6, we believe, on the day. So, well, I wouldn't go as far as say freezing point, but it's body-wise, that would feel like almost freezing point. And if she fell in, the muscles would probably seize, making it difficult to swim properly. Now, Nicola was described as, I think many times in this case, she was described as an expert swimmer. I almost, when I read some of the accounts of her as a swimmer, it was almost like I was reading the story of an Olympic swimmer. In reality, we now know Nicola, like probably many people, was simply what's described as, yeah, she was a swimmer, an active swimmer, but she would be described as a holiday swimmer. One witness, Nurse Helen O'Neill, said, "I heard a scream. It's not an alarming noise, it was just over in a couple of seconds. There were no other sounds for me to be concerned about." Another witness, Veronica Clayson, said, "I was just about to get into the car and I heard a scream. A very short scream, and my immediate thought was, somebody is having a bit of fun at the back of the graveyard." These were two people in the close proximity to where that infamous bench you see in where the dog lead was found, the harness and the mobile phone. Now this is significant. Police analysis of Miss Bulley's iPhone and Fitbit watch showed the phone's last human-generated interaction was at 9:18 a.m. and the watch stopped recording steps beyond 9:30 a.m. People will be familiar with these kind of apps and watches that iPhone watches that you have, that they do your step. You go out for the day, you go to work, you do everything, and they literally record your movements, your everyday movements and the steps, and you can even record some of your health senses within your body. There was an awful lot of talk about the Fitbit, and there were questions as to how much information they could gain from it. And this led to an awful lot of, the usual conspiracy theories and other nonsense. But what needs to be remembered is the Fitbit itself was only found when Nicola's body was found, along with her car keys that she was carrying, other personal objects that she was carrying. This suggested she entered the water between those two times, the hearing was told. Nicola Bulley's family slammed online trolls after a coroner ruled that the mother of two died by accident after falling into a river near her home. A statement issued outside the court on behalf of Miss Bulley's family urged people to look at the facts and ignore those spreading baseless theories on the internet. We encourage people to look at the facts, the evidence which has been heard during the inquest, and the conclusion reached by the coroner, and to ignore any amateur views and opinions, and be mindful of the impact words bring. Miss Bulley died after accidentally falling into the River Wyre close to freezing temperatures. An inquest into her death concluded. She was walking her spring spaniel Willow when she accidentally fell into the water, with experts stating it would have been almost impossible to swim against the current. You will have heard about the flow of the river at the time. Height of the water was maybe higher than people understood, and certainly the flow and current strength was higher than initially thought. Look, I'm gonna go very briefly because I don't want to go down rabbit holes here, and there's too many people out there who have used this case to promote channels, conspiracy theories, personal agendas, and go down rabbit holes. I mean, every case of a missing person, of a person who's tragically passed away, deserves attention, but it doesn't deserve attention when really the attention is on the troller or the person online who's just privately expressing conspiracy theories or personal grievances. Lancashire police and their own communication failures. This is probably a textbook case of how poorly Lancashire police dealt with this case. Again, I'm not going to go into it. I went into it during the main timeline, which is linked in the description. Our phone messages revealed 2 planned events that weekend. No autopsy evidence of a defensive struggle or that Nicola entered the water by choice. In essence, suicide was ruled out. Third party intervention was ruled out, that she was attacked and pushed in the water. And this really were the 2 main points that so many conspiracy theorists and people covering this case fixed upon. They fixed upon it not due to the facts. They fixed upon it because it was so important to keep this story running for them and their channel, so they could do fucking 30, 40, 50, 100 videos every second day on it. That's why. That's why they fixed on it. They weren't remotely interested in the truth. It was clickbait. Believing that everyone connected to a case should think, behave, and say and do exactly as we do in a weird circumstance, in an odd circumstance. We had the whole stuff about the neighbour close to the walking area where Nicola went to, Penny Lancaster. All the nonsense about her, that she was some sort of nutcase, that and there must be something going on because she was one of the people who found the phone and found the dog harness. You know, people act differently under certain circumstances. We don't all behave as each other. Amateur sleuths and their clickbait. I'm not going to say any more on this, but it does compromise an active investigation. And yes, that doesn't discount all the failures by Lancashire police in the way some of the information was released. Sensitive information about Nicola's mental health earlier that January, which we had experts who were actually there on that evening, who were called to the house, and the ambulance was called to the house. We heard from the expert who was actually there and concluded that there was no immediate threat to life, that Nicola was not some crazy suicidal woman about to leap in a river at any moment if she got the chance. Feeding personal agendas, grievances, and conspiracy theories. This case was a perfect example of how that spirals out of control, and how you get people coming to the scene of a missing person, compromising that investigation, and going off down their own rabbit holes and creating 30 or 40 videos on a daily basis just to feed other people into the same conspiracies. It's all personal agenda. It has nothing to do with facts. Don't be fooled by them. Wanting instant answers, like every real tragedy or incident or investigation, only becomes a soap opera It's not a Netflix crime drama. Every time something real happens, it's real, and it takes time. It takes time to investigate. It can take days, weeks, months, sometimes years. That's the way real life works. Magic, trolling, clickbait, channels on YouTube into all this conspiracy theory. They're not interested in facts. They're interested in keeping the mystery going. They're interested in keeping the conspiracies going. It's their bread and their butter. Without it, they don't exist. They're Inspector Clouseau. They have the expertise. And they will always claim this needs to be looked at. They're right. And every other is wrong. And this is what this case suffered from. Tragically, this case was about a woman, through whatever circumstances, accidentally fell in a river and drowned. And that's it. There's no conspiracy. There's no wild affairs. There's no secrecy. There's no conspiracy. There's no man in black. Happens when conspiracy theorists get hold of a case, and the only thing they're concerned about is their agenda and keeping it all going. I'm done with this case. It's concluded. That's it. Thank you for joining me. It's time to move on. Everybody else, get with it.